You know, I am living on this stretch of land we call Eurasia since I can think. It is the biggest landmass our planet has to offer, but I have hardly visited any of it. While the size of our globe truly humbles me, it surely can't be a solution to scroll over mountain ridges on Google Earth or watch the occasional Planet Earth documentary from the comfort of our homes. We sometimes need to get out there, need to smell the cold wind, hear the waves breaking, and feel the ground crumble under our feet. And while we are probably never going to see every corner of this magnificent home we call Earth, no one can tell me that we're not allowed to try. After riding almost 700 kilometers on the first day, which allowed me to cross the whole of Hungary, I was finally back in Romania. This was the starting point of my trail, which led southeast and stretched 1,700 kilometers. I wanted dirt, and let's just say Romania granted my wishes. It was time to get used to the loaded bike in the mud and brush off the first day's many miles. Following the spur of the Transylvanian mountains, I reached Eurasia and the Serbian border, marked by the Danube River. At the Durdap National Park Ranger's hut, I was offered a comfy couch and a place at the dinner table, where we feasted on wild boar chops and griefs. Since the terrain started to level out, I was able to reach the Bulgarian border in a couple of hours the next day. I continued through the country's forgotten northwestern province and some truly deserted regions. Occasionally though, one could make out agricultural activity. It also quickly became clear to me that this year's heavy rainfalls had vastly increased the population of biting insects.
Just
Already the hot and humid climate was starting to challenge the 160 kilogram bush pig and subsequently me. Thorough and attentive preparation for wild camping turned from a luxury off the saddle into a vital necessity. I began following the Trans-Euro trail, that which has started to establish itself, and decided to take a detour to below Grudchik. Luckily, a friendly local recommended a stunning mountain bike trail which allowed me to reconnect to the dead. My throttle cable got stuck somewhere inside its housing.
Half suspicious, in the moment I feel like you're lying.
Some jerking let it move freely again and seemed to solve the problem for now.
Why are you so dangerous? It's like the spell on you is useless. Feeling for you is hopeless.
Konzentration ist schon notwendig. I reached the center of Bulgaria's capital, Sofia, and found a much-needed bed in a youth hostel for the night. The lifestyle that comes with such places didn't fall short. Physically, I felt worn down, and the shape I was in at the beginning was a ghost from the past. Unfortunately, I also had tenacious digestive problems that probably came from bad water. Of course, I checked out the city a bit, and my first impression was actually quite positive. It was nice to be among peers again. To be honest, in the state I was in, fresh food alone was inducing acceleration. When I left the hostel, I ripped off my valve in the rear tire basically after 50 meters. I was able to find a new tube, and I followed the tire shop owner home. In a generous act of hospitality, he offered me an air-conditioned room for free and took me out for dinner with his family. The next day though, I left for the mountains again, this time heading east into the wild Stara Planina. At sundown I met a French group of travelers and their camper van, and we decided to spend my 8th night together on a saddle above 1000 meters.
It was the annual
I headed further into the Balkan Mountains.
Hand in your hand.
Yes.
And then, after 11 days, finally the Black Sea. I found a beach which over the summer months seemed to turn into some kind of informal campground. 3 thinkers and Bulgarian people that longed for a coast as it used to be around here only 20 years ago stayed there and enjoyed the ocean breeze. Very rarely was I able to relax so fast, and the ordeals of the past days slowly passed out of mind. Bulgarians had a name for it: aylak. But I had to continue onwards. I had a goal. I wanted to reach an Asian country on my motorcycle for the first time. Even though the Turkish border is only marked by a small mountain ridge, the cultural differences were quite noticeable. Also, the €100 cash in border insurance for my motorcycle that were late claimed for didn't leave the best first impression. Close to the border, people from Istanbul let me sleep on their country estate though, and I still had enough supplies to fill my belly. Furthermore, I was still aylak, wasn't I? different continent now. Things work differently. Traffic rules were different. People talked new languages. People were everywhere. People wanted to go shopping at the border between Europe and Asia. After so many days out in the wild, the old town gave the strange impression of a constructed tourist attraction fair. If you wanted to, you could feel the old Constantinople. I had reached my goal. I was there, in the mega metropolis. I started to think about home again, about Greece and things I'm more familiar with.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No, YouTube.
series of flats started for me on the rear tire. From Megaderio in Greece onwards, I had one every day. More than once it were two. With over 4,000 kilometers on the clock, this was the longest trip on a motorcycle that I ever did. I was on my way to Igoumenitsa now, which is the Greek Adriatic port town. Without support of the locals though, I would have probably not gotten so far. This is definitely something where I want to take a leaf out of their book.
This is a song about somebody else. So don't worry yourself, worry yourself. The devil's right there in the details. You don't wanna hurt yourself, hurt yourself. Don't looking too closely. Don't looking too closely. No. Put your arms around somebody else. And don't punish yourself, punish yourself. Truth is like blood underneath your fingernails. You don't wanna hurt yourself, hurt yourself. Looking too closely. Looking too closely.
Sibota is a place close to the ferry. I was able to relax there for a couple of days and enjoy the sunny beach. The ferry I took headed to Venice, where I rode on the highway home. Although that would have probably been too nice. Just 120 kilometers away from Vienna, the chain on my motorcycle gave up and I had to hitchhike home. Even in my country I could count on the help of locals. The next day, Lucas, also a Taste of Freedom member, picked up the bike with me. Possibly it is advisable for trips of this length to calculate your chain life before you're heading out into the unknown. See you next time.